How many of you know what a security blanket is? How many of you had one as a child? How many of you still have one? A security blanket is defined as an item that provides psychological support and eases the tension of anxiety. Friends, I don't know about you guys, but the title of my speech here today is The Invisible Security Blanket. January of 1984, I arrived here from Lagos, Nigeria, in St. Louis, Missouri. I arrived here with my father. We got to the airport, took a cab to St. Louis University campus, and spent the night. The next morning, we woke up, had breakfast, went to St. Louis University, and I registered for classes. The next morning, we got up, did some banking, paid tuition, bought some books, looked around campus, figured out where my classes were. The following morning, we got up and went to the airport to see my father off. We got to the airport, my father walked to the check-in and checked his luggage in. He looked back at me and he smiled. And I looked up at him and I smiled. He checked the luggage in and we walked to the security gate. And he said his favorite words to me. All the best, son. All the best. He walked through the gates and I watched him just walk away. Then he turned around and gave me that last look and gave me a salute and said, all the best, son. See, when he made that last turn and I watched his back as he walked away from me, I turned around. And as I turned around, it was as if somebody just ripped off my security blanket. I felt dizzy. I felt lonely. I felt hopeless. I thought, what am I doing here? Why am I here? And better still, how the heck do I get back on campus? I made my way back on campus. And it was at that point that I started to realize that I had begun the journey to really aspire towards my own excellence. 3 years later, I graduated from St. Louis University with a bachelor's in finance, business administration. Approximately 7 years later, I opened up my own insurance agency. 7 years after that, I opened up my own mortgage business. Between that, I had some investments in some franchises that I managed and owned. Now, as I did this, people kept saying to me, what are you doing, Julius? You can't do that. There's enough of these businesses out there. You know, find something else to do. My point is, there were always people doubting. There were always naysayers out there. We call them the Greek gods known as obstacules. Okay? But it didn't really faze me. Because all I could think of, and all I want you to think about is, why would a mother and a father send their child 6,000 miles away from home? No cousins, no brothers, no sister, 6,000 miles away from home. Why would they do that? What could he have done wrong? Don't feel bad for me. But that's how I felt. But you see, they had the confidence that I had the comfort of my invisible security blanket. They had the confidence that the job they had done, the foundation they have provided, was going to provide that psychological comfort and was going to ease my times of tension and anxiety. And it did. As I proceed along, I find myself asking myself and others that I work with this question. Do you consider yourself successful? Now, Earl Nightingale defined success as realization of worthy ideals. But before you answer that question, I want you to think about these questions. Did you grow up in a two-parent household? Did you grow up with a father figure in your household? A nurturing mother? Did you have access to private school education? Did you have access to private tutors? Did you ever have to worry about where your next meal was going to come from? Did you have to help out your parents with the bills? Now, depending on the answers to these questions, I think you'll realize that none of those questions, the answers to them in your mind, had nothing to do with what you did or the choices you made. So when you think about your invisible security blanket, realize that nothing you have done so far towards the steps of your success, okay, nothing in the answer to those questions actually had something to do with what you did or the decisions you made, because it was woven in the fiber of that invisible security blanket. Not taking anything away from what you've done in life, but I think it's important to look back and to see who we are and where we are. So I ask you these questions for a reason. Why are we here? What are we doing? Today, I own my own advisor business. And what we do, we work with business owners and executives and help them ease the tension of that anxiety in business and in life. And I'm happy to say that as I work with people in this path of life, I've found out three things. We all have to be humble enough to be dependent. In other words, we need to really hone in our own skills. We need to be teachable. Then we have to be independent and really be good at what we do. And then thirdly, we have to be able to work interdependently with others, both in business and in life. And most of us that are married know this very well. And so I ask you today, think about where you are and what you're doing and how you got to where you are. And think about this. Everything starts with a vision. That's why my slogan for my business is envision, aspire, and evolve to your own excellence. Not your father's excellence, not your mother's excellence, not your sister's excellence, but to your excellence.